Hey guys, what's up? Well, I edited up a big long video for your viewing pleasure and I flubbed up the edit on it. So it ain't coming tonight. So I still got the raw files thankfully, but I've got to re-edit that thing and get it rendered and everything. So it's on the way. But I thought in the meantime, I always like doing these talking videos about cars and things that I had, and I think some people like those, so we'll do another one tonight. We'll just do a Friday night chat. And so let's start up the Wayback Machine and let's go check out something else I used to have. And what that something else is that I used to be pretty heavily into these G-body wagons. You see a couple of them in the picture in front of you there, and I apologize if some folks are having problems seeing those pictures clearly because I'm filming the monitor, and I have problems seeing that monitor myself, and I'm sitting right in front of it, so I understand those complaints. I'm sorry if that's a problem, but anyway, I had about, over the years, I guess I had about 5 different ones of those wagons. I've got two different pictures. We don't be going back and forth with a lot of pictures, but a couple of them, one of them I don't have a picture of, and one you've seen already because I had it on YouTube. So they ranged from the very first one I had, which was that one, that Buick right there, to the very last one I've had so far, which was that red 83 Olds Cutlass Cruiser. So anyway, let's do a little talking about these cars. Now, when I bought that Buick, the blue one right there on the right, that's the Buick. That's a 78 Buick Century wagon, and those, I've never seen one again like that, and I don't think they're rare, but they've got a certain, they've got kind of interesting front end treatment on them, and I would know one if I saw them. I saw several later ones, but not one that old. But when I bought that car, I was not in the market for one of those. I knew what they were. I'd had a few different G-bodies. I had some Cutlasses. I had a couple Grand Prix, one before this and one after that, and things like that. So I was familiar with them. I liked them. So I saw this wagon for sale. It was on one of these cheap car lots. So I made a U-turn and went back and checked it out, and it was, like I said, it was a 78 Buick Century. Is just a base model wagon, which a lot of those were. Several of the ones I had were like that. Most of them, as a matter of fact. It had vinyl upholstery, had light blue exterior, medium blue vinyl upholstery in pretty decent shape, and just standard gauges, standard suspension. It had a 231 V6 engine in it with a 200 metric transmission, which was bad. Yeah, it would drive, I think it was either, I think that transmission was stuck in second gear, and it would not come out of second gear no matter what you did. So that was that, and also it didn't run that good. It had a skip in it, so it was run on 5 cylinders, but it sounded okay, and didn't make any bad noises. So the guy made me a heck of a deal on it. I think I paid like $700 for it, and it was straight, wasn't wrecked, no rust. And at that time, it did not have, those are Buick Rally wheels, 14-inch Buick Rally wheels, which I bought later. It didn't have those on it. It had just hubcaps. So I got that thing, bought it, and hauled it home back to the other house down there, and started working on it a little bit. And the first thing I did, I had a leftover turbo 350 short tail transmission out of some other project that you guys never saw. I think it was some car I parted out. So I didn't know if that transmission was any good. I thought it was supposed to be. So I thought, well, what the heck. It was a Buick Olds Pontiac transmission, so it fit right on the back of that V6. So you know what I did? I ripped that 200 out, stuffed in that turbo 350, and it worked great. So that was good. Got that all resolved. So the next thing I had to do is find out why it wasn't running right. And so what I did with that was just real simple. Started checking the simple stuff. And on those cars are prone for whatever reason to have distributor cap problems. And that's what was wrong with that one. It had a carbon track on the distributor on the inside of it. So it was shorting out. I think it was an outside or inside anyway. It might have been on the outside. I never had seen that on one of those, but it was basically just like they say, jumping fire down to one of the grounds on the side of the distributor. So I put a new cap and all that on it, cap and rotor, and it ran great. So I drove it, started driving it a little ways, and I started driving it just, all around town and stuff. And the next thing I've realized about that car, it drove good, it ran good, but I'd go down the road like at 60, 65 miles an hour, especially at night. I could notice it at night, and I just barely start to see the temperature lights start to glow on it, just barely. And those temperature lights on those cars of that vintage, they are not just an off-on light. They will start to glow dimly if it's starting to get a little hot. So it wasn't really, it didn't boil over or anything, but I knew it was just running too hot, obviously. So I got back to the redneck garage and checked on that, and what that turned out to be is it had a bad fan clutch. So that was an easy fix. I fixed the fan clutch, started driving the wheels off of it. I really like driving that car. So I did that and drove it, and I noticed a couple more things about it. Next thing I noticed was that car had a huge amount of blow by. It had a tube that comes out of the valve cover on one side, and it was supposed to go up to the air cleaner. Well, that thing started filling the air cleaner up with oil real bad. So what I decided to do, instead of ruining the air filter again, I took that little curved piece of hose off of it, and I put on a long piece of heater hose, and I clamped it at the valve cover fitting, and then I ran it back under the car to the right hand wheel, right back behind the right front wheel. And so that thing sit there, you'd sit at a traffic light and you'd see this vapor just start creeping up beside you, man. You see people rolling their windows up and stuff, and so anyway, the next thing I found out is that car consumed a ton of oil. That engine was really worn out, and it had low oil pressure. I put gauges in it later on, and it had going down the road like 60, had like 10 pounds of oil pressure. But it just ran and ran and ran and ran, and never quit running, never blew up, never locked up, never did anything. I finally swapped another engine in it, put a Olds 350 in it, which wasn't a whole lot better. And I think I finally just got bored with it and sold it. So that was that car, and I kind of miss that car. That wasn't my favorite one out of all of them. That was the next one. As you can see, I still had that car when I bought that one. That was a 79 Olds Cutlass Cruiser, and that car had been kind of fixed up. It had Olds rally wheels on it, the chrome ones. It had purple looking, bluish purple paint job. The windows were tinted, and it had those kind of funky looking graphics on it, which I didn't like. But that car was another side of the road purchase. I bought it from this guy. I had a little shop down there, and that car actually had a 400 Chevy small block put in it that was knocking. It ran good, but when it got hot, it started knocking a little bit. And it had nice exhaust, and I considered keeping that car, but I ended up just flipping it, turning it, and selling it. But boy, I can tell you that engine was powerful. It was a lot more powerful than that one. That one wouldn't even turn a tire over, but I could get that one right out there in front of the street, and man, I could romp it, and that sucker would lay a patch up there. But again, it was just kind of, it was a little bit more outlandish than I wanted, and it was, it was a cool car, but I never fixed it, never drove it, never did anything with it. It just hung around like some of my stuff does. It hung around my house for a month or so, and somebody else bought it, and away it went. So that was a 79 Cutlass Cruiser. And then somewhere in between that, or right after that, I made a mistake of buying a 1981, I think it was, Pontiac Grand Le Mans wagon. And now let me explain something about these wagons. Now, before 1981, these and the coupes, the Cutlasses, like the 2 doors and 4 doors, were actually called A bodies. They were called A specials, but in 1981 they redesignated them as G bodies. So these were all actually A body wagons, but we'll say G body just to be consistent. But I bought that damn. They changed that to a Bonneville in 1982. They changed the front end on it. The 81 Le Mans wagon was the one that had a funky looking front end on it. It had a kind of a shovel nose front end with 4 headlights on it. And I didn't mind the way it looked, but that was kind of an ugly car. It was kind of a tan color, and it had an orange inset in it. It used to be wood grain, but they painted it orange. And I never took pictures of that car. I hated that car. That was the worst one of all of them, because we bought this from this guy off of eBay. and I had to drive it back from Tennessee, and that sucker, it was a 231 V6 just like that one, and it had a 200 metric transmission that worked good, but that thing ran like a bag of you know what. You get going down the road in it, and it'd run okay for a little while, then all of a sudden you give it gas and it would backfire through the carburetor, or it'd miss or do something, you know, and just smoke, and the starter was worn out in it, so we were afraid we were going to be stranded on the way back home from up there, because it'd get hot and that thing would just barely turn over. It would just... But we made it home, and I messed around with it and tried to get it running better, and I don't know what was wrong with that engine. I don't know if it had a broken ring or something, but it just really smoked bad, and it just would not run, just wouldn't run exactly right. So I got bored with it. I think I had it after that one, I'm sure, and I think that was after I had swapped the engine in that one, so I had the starter left over, so I swapped the starter on it and got it where it started okay, but it just never, that car never ran good, and it was just this base model car. I just didn't like it, so I kept it a couple months, and away it went. I saw it float around Craigslist for a long time after that, but that car needed another engine put in it pretty bad. So the fourth one I had was my absolute favorite of all of them. It was the best one of those. It was not the newest, but that was this one. Let me re-aim you a little bit. Man, this was a sweet car. It was not in the best shape of all of them, I wouldn't say, but this was a nice one. It was the best one I had. This was a 1978 Pontiac Grand Le Mans wagon, just like the 81. And that is a kind of a chestnut brown, and it had a kind of a tan that looks like white, but that was more of a tan inset. It had those rally wheels on it, the Rally 2 wheels, or 14-inch wheels. And this one was equipped differently from the other ones. This one had power windows, power door locks, cruise, but the biggest difference is this one had a 305 Chevy small block in it, original, with a 2-barrel carburetor. It was old enough it had the 2G carburetor on it, with a turbo 350 transmission in it. And I bought this one off Craigslist, and we drove this car all the way back from somewhere out there like Social Circle, I think the town was. Drove it back, and the only thing really wrong with it at that time was that the carburetor was a little flaky in it. Sometimes it wouldn't idle right or stuff like that, but that was a really nice driving car, because it had that F41 suspension on it. It had a big sway bar in the front, it had a sway bar in the rear, it had the stiffer springs, it had the faster ratio steering box on it. So if you ever buy one of these A bodies or G bodies, make sure you buy one that's equipped like that, because I love that car. It just really handled good, it rode good, it was whatever one of them should be. There should never be stock suspension on any of those cars. And it ran good, and I've had G bodies with the Olds 307 in it, and every time I've been in one, if you remember that 87 Pontiac Grand Prix I had that I was working on in that very same yard right there, made a video, several videos of it, had a 305 in it, and I've just came away every time thinking the same thing, is that the 305, I'm not crazy about small blocks, but the 305 just seem to run much better in these cars than the Oldsmobile version. I don't know why that is. It seems the Oldsmobile version, I like Oldsmobile, but they seem like they're just sluggish, and these just seem more responsive, and I liked it. I liked that car a lot, and I wouldn't have sold it, but I got one of those wild hairs like I get, and I just decided that I wanted something else, you know. But I missed that car. I would have, if there had been one of those I was going to keep for a long time, it would have been that one. But it is gone. Somebody bought it too, and I did a few things to it. I put new white letter tires on it, and I changed the gauges over to actual gauges instead of the idiot lights. But I drove that car a lot, man. I drove it out of town a whole lot. It was reliable and never had any problems, none whatsoever. So that was the best one. That was one I liked the best. And then the last one I got was that 83 Cutlass Cruiser that you guys saw the video on. I made the cold start video and the Polar Vortex, and that was another V6 car. with standard suspension and all that in it. So it was okay. I like that car all right. But like I said, I think if I ever buy another one of these, even if I like buy just like a coupe, like a Grand Prix or something, I'll definitely look for one with a Chevrolet engine in it, or at least a V8. Now, the V6s are just not just not peppy enough for me. And I think the best combination is a V8 engine with a turbo 250 or a turbo 350 transmission. I would not get another one with a metric in it if I could help it. So there you go, guys. There's the GM A-body and G-body wagons that I had over the years. And so hope you enjoyed this little tour back down memory lane with me. And I may, good Lord wills it, I may get another one of those one day if I find one I like. I always like wagons, and I've got another wagon to show you on another video, which is similar to this but a little bit bigger, and there's a story behind that one too. So everybody take care. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.